What's the best oil paint? Well, the best oil paint is the oil paint that works the best for you, depending on your needs. So if your need is to keep your prices down, you don't want to spend a lot of money on paint for a number of reasons. Maybe you don't have a lot of money, maybe you want to use a lot of paint and you want to just keep your prices down. If that's the case, the best oil paint for you is probably a student grade paint. When you're looking at student grade paints, I would suggest looking at paints like Gamblin 1980 or Winsor Newton's student grade brand Winton. They still have a very high pigment load. Pigment load is the part of the paint that gives you your color. So for example, this is a rock called lapis lazuli, and this rock is ground down to make ultramarine blue. In the ultramarine blues that don't use synthetic ultramarine blue, that is. The ones that use natural ultramarine blue, grind down a rock like this called lapis lazuli. There are other natural compounds like cobalts and cadmiums, chromium, titanium, and others that are ground down and put into a binder, which is linseed oil typically. It can be poppy seed oil or safflower oil or even coconut oil. But then there's a third ingredient, and that's called a filler. Fillers can be things like chalk or talc or calcium carbonate or even wax. Fillers are a lot cheaper to use than and to manufacture and to acquire and to process than the pigments and even the binders, the oil. So paints like student grade paints have a lot of filler and not a lot of pigment. You're going to want paints that have a high pigment load. Okay, if you have a budget that can put you from the student grade up into the professional grade paint, what are the best oil paints for that? I would go for oil paints that use high pigment and little to no filler. Let me show you a few examples. These two are what I would call super premium brands. These are both professional grade oil paints. This one here is Old Holland, and these guys have been making paint since the 1700s. It's a very high pigment level. The binder, the oil in it is refined linseed oil. It's very high quality, and there's no filler whatsoever, no chalk or talc or wax or anything. The other one is Michael Harding. Michael Harding is out of the UK, and again, no filler whatsoever. The downside to both Old Holland and Michael Harding is that they are extremely expensive. You don't get a lot of paint for what you pay, but they are excellent. Something like this one, Gamblin, these guys are out of Portland in the United States, would be my top recommendation for a high quality paint at the best price possible. These guys do have filler in their paint, but not much. The pigment load is still extremely high. So what's the best paint for you? Well, it depends on your budget and what you want to do with it. I hope this helps.